This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Okay, so then after school, I started working at Tops.
Uh-huh.
And then after Tops, I went to American Sales.
Uh-huh.
And then after that, I went to work at this other place.
Hey, guys, what's going on?
I'm telling Jerry about my background in prep for tonight's show.
We've been here for quite a while.
You talking about Bob's past characters?
No, I was giving him my background.
Is that relevant for the show tonight?
Well, our show's about player background, right?
No, it's about character backgrounds.
Oh, oops.
I was right. I want my time back.
And with that, let's begin the 392nd episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Tonight, we're talking about character backgrounds. Then we're going to take a trip to the conversation corner and find out all of Phil's favorite TikTok videos. But first, let's get this started by saying my name is Phil.
My name is Jerry.
And I'm Old Man Logan.
I was only half kidding about that TikTok thing.
Only half.
I was just half kidding about it. Anyway, welcome to the beginning of the show. Tonight's topic, as I said, is going to be character backgrounds. We got some thoughts all about that. But before we dive into our thoughts about that, let's talk about one thing. Jerry, what's your one thing?
I got back into lots of gaming. Last week was my game almost every single night. Got to do some Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. And it's good to get back into some of our sessions after being off for a long time. And got to do some really good role-playing scenes. A lot of things got developed and a lot of character development that was going really well. Even DCC. So.
Yeah.
All right. Bob?
So I started watching season 2 of Lost in Space.
Oh, yeah.
And I had forgotten how much I enjoy the updated theme song. They took the original theme song from the old Irwin Allen TV show and they jazzed it up and made it more modern. And it's got this, it's almost got kind of an epic kind of a feel to it. It's very orchestral and fun. I enjoy the hell out of it. It's a good show. I'm enjoying it so far, about halfway through season 2. And I'm enjoying it just as much as I did the first season.
I watched up to the waterfall episode. I haven't gone past that yet. So.
What about you, Phil?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think probably good solid Forbidden Lands game.
Uh-huh.
It was different though. So after weeks and many sessions of being away from the stronghold, all you guys made it back to your stronghold, and we switched from role playing and exploration to stronghold management, which is a bit more spreadsheety than the rest of the game. But it's like you need to generate resources in order to build stuff, in order to get resources. You need to mine. You need to mine in order to craft. And you need to craft
in order to mine.
Yeah. But it got into, so it was really interesting because it actually prompted me to think of my topic for my article for Gnome Stew this month, which is about phases of play. Like we hit a very distinct phase of play that's different than what we've been doing before, but it's still a relevant part of the game. Like building your stronghold and advancing your stronghold is actually an important part of the game, and so it feels very different and it's run very different because you jump out to more of a player level and you're abstracting resources and figuring out what to build and stuff. So it's cool, but it wasn't like as role play or combat oriented or anything like that. It was very much like, well, who are we assigning to the quarry this week? And
it was mathy.
Yeah, it was. There was math involved and spreadsheets and shit, which for a lot of people you might think is not your cup of tea. But I actually like that this game has a little of all of that. Like that section of the game is not overly complicated. And it's abstracted fairly well.
Yeah.
But you do got to break out some spreadsheets. Bob made us a pretty dope spreadsheet to help us out with that.
I was sitting there and I was going, wow, keeping track of a stronghold is hard. Ow.
There's
got to be a better way.
There is, for 3 low payments of $19.99. Plus, you'll also get.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it was interesting because it's a very different part of the game for me, where it's a lot more about you guys and a little bit more. I'll be honest, it's a little bit more of like me at work.
Yeah.
Like, okay, who are we assigning to these things? Cool. How much are we generating? What decision do you guys want to make with that? All right, cool. Yeah. So, anyway.
Yeah.
You have fun with it. That's cool.
Yeah, it was
I
good.
mean, I'm from the '80s, so I love games with spreadsheets, Car Wars, designing starships and Traveler.
Did you ever design starships for Star Frontiers?
Oh yeah, Star Frontiers,
Yeah.
Warp Space. I gotta remember, I lived in the country. I hated everybody I went to school with, and I had no girlfriend. I built a lot of starships and cars. And
GURPS vehicle is, if I remember correctly, the most masturbatory of all the supplements. Like the amount of stuff you can build. Oh no. Oh.
I just did GURPS Space that had.
Oh no.
But it was very Traveler-esque. If you've built starships and
Yeah.
Traveler, you design things down to like how much did the latrine weigh and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how much space it took up so you could build it on a map. I also did lots of starship maps, and
I liked the. I say this with a 6th grade memory. I liked the starship building in Star Frontiers Nighthawks, but I don't know if that's true. Like
it was pretty
It's colored by
straightforward.
nostalgia.
I don't trust nostalgia anymore.
You'd probably like the starship building in Mekton, because the starship building in Mekton for the Mekton Empire, before they got to all the crunchy stuff, was basically decide if your starship is a backdrop or a major part of the story.
Yeah.
And if it's a major part of the story, you just decide what's on it, give it some basic numbers, and decide if it's bigger or smaller than something else, and that's it. And the rest of it is just all, how does it fit the story? And I really liked that. Your whole starship fit on like a 3x5 card, and your map was just like, okay, there's a bridge here, and there's like 4 mecha bays here, and there's 10 starships. It was very much the kind of thing you'd need. This is before they came out with the second Mekton Technical Manual, which then Car Wars did all up. And,
Right, Car Wars did all.
Yeah.
You know what though? I'll say this for Car Wars, because I played Car Wars incorrectly as a kid, so it was fun as opposed to playing it correctly. But I really did like making cars, because making cars in Car Wars wasn't terrible. No. Like it was a little bit of math, but it was like doable math. It got more bonkers like as you got into the supplements, like tanks and helicopters and 18-wheelers. But like if you were just making cars were fun. And I still remember like how to draw the little box on the side, right? And like you put your armor, and then you put, your number of boxes for the flamethrower.
Oh, because for Car Wars, everything was based on how much could your engine move.
Yep.
And then so once you knew your max number.
Yep. You just spent that as a budget.
Yep. And you had here's your chassis, and here's your frame, and here's your engine. And once you had that, everything else was just you got to the point where you had kind of stock options,
That was actually the best thing they did, was they would be like, okay, there's this car, the Barracuda, and you can get it with these stats, or you can swap out, like change out the oil dropper for a mine dropper plus a laser, like they give you like 3 options. That's so cool. That if you wanted to just play, you could very quickly like grab some stats, write them down and play. Or if you wanted to, like you could do like Jerry said, you could break out the book alone and just build and build and build cars. And I don't think we give enough credit to this, and I almost want to break out a pin, because I kind of want to talk about this at some point.
So pin this.
Yeah, pin the idea of playing outside the game.
Yeah.
Because
we've been talking about it for 5 minutes now, so yes.
Yes. So because there is a
as
thing,
opposed to metagaming in our traditional the way we used to.
No, playing outside the game and metagaming are two different
No,
things.
we have a different definition that we've always used for a long time about playing outside the game. I know what I'll want to talk about, and I'll brainstorm it with you guys on Slack if we think it's a viable topic. But there is a thing about sitting, like I did it more when I was a kid. I do it less now. But there was a thing when I was a kid where I would sit with a lot of my game books, and you could do a bunch of stuff by yourself. It was the equivalent of, when you were a Magic player sitting and making decks.
Sort of, yeah.
Because it was like an activity you could participate in outside the game that was enjoyable for yourself, but didn't require the game group to be together to do it. And that's not a thing that's in a lot of modern games.
No. There's definitely a topic there because I've got 6 or 7 examples of different things we've done with that already.
In the past, absolutely. In current games, I think it's actually a lot harder, and I think Invisible Sun might be one of those ones that has a thing where you can kind of solo yourself kind of thing. I'm always for solo.
Are we not doing
yourself.
phrasing?
No, I'm totally not doing phrasing. Thanks. I was just making that joke.
Yes, you
It's
definitely
funny
did that
because it's a
on Pandas.
masturbation joke,
Yes, it is.
which is like our shtick.
Are you saying it's less fun with people there?
No, can also be fun with people there too. All right. Anyway, with that, I don't think we have any announcements. We should just get ready to move right into the actual.
You
show
don't
topic.
have a beverage to wet your throat, but
I'm gonna do it anyway.
do it anyway.
Do you want
Going
me
in
to- do you
dry.
want me to get
No,
you
no,
some
I'm
water,
good.
guys?
I'm good. I'm a professional. I can do this.
All right, ready?
Yeah, yeah. Workshop, character background, have a backstory, know all this stuff about the history of your character, share it with your GM, but not too much of it because then you'll go bonkers. Workshop!
Don't suck.
All right.
Look at that. That is not as easy as you think it is. Okay, cool. Yeah, tonight's topic is something that we came up with in a recent pre-show. We were sitting around here as Bob was cabling us up, and we were talking about characters and stuff, and someone made the dreaded 10-page character background joke. And I had said that I was of two minds when it comes to character backgrounds. Jerry said he had some strong feelings about character backgrounds as well. And that is literally all you need to become a show topic around here. Yeah. Like that is basically how a show, that's how an idea becomes a
line.
show. I know, well, you weren't fast enough on it. I didn't want the dead air.
Sorry.
You were doing technical stuff. I was on it. So anyway, tonight we are going to do a bit of garage work in the workshop. Not a thing I normally do, where we drag the garage equipment in here, but we're going to do a little bit of garage work in the workshop. We're going to talk about character backgrounds, what they are, what are they doing, and then we're going to talk about how to best use them in the game, and then we're going to do our normal, we're going to do our roundtable discussion all about character backgrounds.
And no dead air, Phil, is best Phil. Since we're getting this topic away in the garage, Phil, can you dissect the character background?
Yeah. Let's take it apart. What's going on in the character background, right? The character background is a set of notes or writing, however you want to store it, that details the history of a character before the player assumes the role of the character. And it can contain like a whole bunch of different things.
Contain origin stories, your culture, your history, any NPCs and their backgrounds, any locations they're from, any events, anything that goes along with that.
Yeah, and it's created by the character. Typically, it's done like when the like around the time the character created, like either a little bit before, during, or a little bit after. And then there are games that have, and we've talked about this previously on the show, games that have life paths or bonds that can also help shape those backgrounds.
And there's also now a bunch of third-party tools like backstory cards that you can use to assist with generating your background.
Ryan fucking Macklin from the internet, right?
From the internet.
And so, you can do that, right? So you can do that as a group effort. You can do it as a solo effort, right? Where you as a player just kind of come up with your background on your own. Or you can do it as a table, right? You can do that as a shared event. So depending on the game, mechanically, you may not even need a background, right? I mean, I've played characters without backgrounds before. But also, depending on your gaming group and your table culture, like it may or may not be required. Like there was a period where, I think sometime in the 90s when I was really militant about no lone wolf orphan characters, right? Like you had to have like, you had to have some sort of background. You couldn't just,
Classic lone wolf orphan.
Yeah.
I'm still militant about that. I'm like, you can be, I'll talk about this later on.
Yeah.
But I'm still militant about that.
No, it's
for different reasons.
No, it's fair. I think it's legitimate, right? Like I don't like it either, but I do remember, especially as a kid in the 80s, you really didn't want to have too much of a background because in bad 80s game time,
Uh-huh.
right? There was good 80s game time, but in bad 80s game time, having a background was just giving your GM
Ways to screw you.
ways to screw you, right? Like, so that's where like your lone wolf character came from, because if you had no background, the GM had less stuff to F with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also blame one other thing for that.
Yeah.
Wolverine.
Yeah. Also,
Everybody
80s.
wanted to be Wolverine.
Everybody
Yes.
wanted to be Wolverine.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
and then they gave him a background, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure I was thrilled when it happened.
I liked some of his background.
It's all right, but it was he was like the one character that did not need a background.
No.
He like walked out of the wilderness somewhere. He was totally badass, and then
Yeah.
that's all you needed. All right, anyway,
All right.
moving on.
So first question we're going to ask is, what does a character background do? Backgrounds do a number of things for different members within the group. So we're going to look at it from 3 different perspectives.
Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of what we're going to talk about later will come out of, right? So the first perspective we're going to look at is the player perspective, right? And I'm going to argue, we'll see if the chat room agrees or not. I'm going to argue that the player perspective, when it comes to character backgrounds, is the most important function of a character's background.
I agree. I mean, the background is the player's prep. And like a GM's prep, the goal of the character background is to make the player feel comfortable enough to inhabit the role of the character and act as them in the game.
Yeah, exactly, right? So if a background does nothing more than that, it's done everything it needs to do. And as we know from our own lives, right, past events color who we are today, right? I mean, Senda and I are, Turning Point, which Senda and I are writing, is literally a whole game based on that premise, right? That your past affects your present. So when we want to inhabit the role of someone else, it often helps us to understand their background.
Why is our character so gruff? What is that locket that they hold on to? Has my character always been this nimble, or is this something new? What made them decide to become a wizard?
Yeah, exactly, right? And so we use the answers to those, right? We use those to build a background, which helps us justify the traits that we're going to present in the game, right? And it also gives us some like emotional bleed, right? To help us project the feelings of the character. Like if I make my character have a past where they were bullied,
Exactly.
right? Like I can draw on my own experiences from high school to bleed in, to bleed in and actually like play the character with a little more oomph, right?
And when we get to GMing, that'll help the next section, because that also comes into it.
Yeah. So what's the next perspective, Jared?
Because that is the GM's perspective. The GM has a big influence on and is influenced by your character background. It's going to be a field of personal story hooks, all sorts of things that they can play on and work with you on. We're always trying to find a way to make an emotional connection with the player and with the character in the game.
Yeah, because we know, I mean, we've talked about this a lot on the show, that anytime you can create an emotional connection to the player, it creates focus, it raises intensity, and it can really energize the game, right? When you've really connected, when you have a bunch of players who are connected into the game, the energy level of the table really like picks up.
That's what it takes it to the next level.
Yes.
And as GMs, we always want to have some connection to the characters and the events that happen in the game to be events that are influenced by them. And if we have events that are in their background that we can tie to, we can work towards making that emotional connection. So let's say you have an idea for a plot where a spirit is kidnapping people and putting them in a pocket dimension to feed off their life energy.
Yeah. So like the way to do this with no backgrounds is just simply be like, oh, you have arrived at a town and random townspeople each night are disappearing and nobody knows why, right? It's a decent enough plot. Like it'll do. You could probably hook players into it. Conversely, we could do that same idea, but now we could have word be sent to one of the players that their family, which they have previously told us about in their backstory, that 3 of their family members have gone missing, and that the remaining family members have written to the player to call for aid.
Character.
Sorry, written to the character to call for aid, right? And that is a very different, that's a very different hook, especially for that player. And then if the characters in the group have any kind of connections or relationships pulling on one pulls on all of them.
There's also the advantage to allow players to kind of live through their characters in an even better way. You talked about the bullying situation. You know, if you were bullied a lot in school, letting the player have a character who can deal with that problem in a better way than we were able to and resolve that also gives not only an emotional connection, but also often a cathartic effect.
So
my D&D game did a lot of that with the players at my table.
So let's quick warning that is therapy through gaming,
Yep.
which is not a thing. Which is not a thing you should sneak up on your group. Like as a player, if you want to put your own personal trauma into your background and work through in the game, that is really a thing that needs to be discussed as a group and kind of gotten consent, because we are not therapists.
Yeah.
And you can do real damage mishandling some of that
Yeah,
stuff.
tread carefully in that.
Yeah. It can be, I'm not discounting it, right? Because it definitely can be done, but it is definitely a thing that very carefully you want to, as a player, you want to think about bringing up in the game.
Yep.
And as a,
You always want to talk to the player about anything that's going to be about their character in the story.
yeah, so for instance, I give an example. When I was getting divorced years ago, I was foolishly trying to run a Conspiracy X game because I thought I was perfectly fine and I could just run a game in the middle of a divorce. Not true. But one of the players was making their character, and they wanted their character to be in the middle of a divorce. But the player stopped and was like, "Hey, Phil, is that going to be okay? Like, is it all right if my character is just recently divorced or something, and part of the storyline is kind of like my relationship with my ex-wife and my kid?" And I was like, "Thank you for asking. I think so." Right? Like I gave it some thought and I told him it was fine, but that player had the forethought to be like, "Hey, my background may intersect with your trauma. Is it okay?"
Yep.
So I think that is what you call it. I think that's very I think it's very important. I don't, like I said, there are some good articles on the internet if you do some searching about therapy through play, and there are some pros and cons for it. I'm not sure exactly where I land on it. I know what you were going for because I did some of that when I was a teenager as well, especially my Price of Freedom game, where all the mean kids in school were Russian collaborators.
Yep.
Oh, we're seeing a lot of that just happen today with games where you're seeing a lot of Nazi punching and
True.
and fight the man and all of that.
It's true. Most of my favorite games right now involve burning down establishments and setting people free. So there is definitely.
That's why I said catharsis. I think it's cathartic, not therapeutic, but cathartic.
It is when it's done safely.
Yeah.
And I don't think all traumas work incredibly well with it. But again, not to wander too far off that thing. There is we'll put some caution signs up.
Yeah,
There's some
definitely.
caution signs around that.
Definitely.
Be careful, do your homework, get a lot of consent. Okay, cool. What else we got?
Well, the other thing is that we can use these backgrounds for a lot of the secondary story arcs in a campaign. You can start with crafting our main arc and then use that to find connections to the players. But for your secondary plots, you can pull on something interesting from their background and then flesh it out and involve the rest of the party with it.
Yeah, I mean, you totally. One of those things, and we talked about this many episodes ago on the arc of the Misdirected, is that you have your main big story arc going, and then you like to have I do, I think you do too, Jerry. I like to have secondary plots for each of the characters, kind of running in between the big main action, and if you can mine those right out of their backgrounds, it saves you a lot of work, right? So for instance. And again, talking about being careful with your traumas, right? Perhaps a character has a family member who's struggling with substance abuse, and with some consent from the player, you could make that into an arc about having that character help their family member overcome their addiction.
Right.
That actually happened in our heist game, not totally with consent. It happened all in one or two sessions, but it was a really powerful secondary story where
I mean, the player asked for
yes,
the character to become addicted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that set off a whole chain of
Yep.
different
And
stuff.
that was asked. That was talked about with me as the GM.
Yep.
We agreed. We let it play out, and then it culminated in a very, very dramatic episode.
Very dramatic, very tense.
A standoff in a kitchen with guns, and it was. Yeah, it was a moment.
Yep.
Yeah. So, absolutely right. Like that is totally a great use for a character background. Okay. Yep. The last angle to look at this from is the group perspective. Yep. At the group level, a character's background can be used to create shared history and common linkages among the other characters, right? So much like how having a personal connection to an arc creates emotional investment, having personal connections to the other characters creates emotional investment in the other characters.
And it's not only good emotional investment with the characters is good for role-playing, but also really helps to take care of party unity and stops the problem of why are these 7 idiots even working together?
Correct. And parties that are unified are more productive.
Absolutely.
Which, by the way, as a sneak peek, is next week's episode about productive play.
And what we mean by that is that they will work together to move through the story as a group. It keeps them from going off on their own little self-centered interests, and it helps to keep them from showing little regard for each other. When they're all have some sort of common link or tie together, different story arcs will crisscross in a way that allow the players to participate in each other's stories and make it more than just about one person.
Yeah, which does a great job on cutting down on infighting, betrayals, abandoning characters, and all like the other nonsense that, especially if you gamed in the 80s and 90s, can remember characters doing to one another. And remember some really bad character behaviors. The way that background ties into this, right, is when players start to link parts of their backgrounds together. So I'm coming up with something, Jerry's coming up with something, and we find a way to make that a thing, right?
Yep.
Give us an example of how we would do that.
For example, one player has a wise mentor, taught them magic, and another player comes from a prestigious family line.
You.
And they think the two together and say that the mage maybe would have been from that family tree.
Yeah, right? Like now we have a thing.
We had this in one of the games we played where I was a half-elf and other characters playing an elf, and there was enough of an age gap that I was their illegitimate son.
Yeah.
Instant link.
Yeah.
And had no trouble figuring out why these people were adventuring together. So
when I was at GatorCon, I ran a funnel for Gator and a table full of people, and one of Gator's 4 characters was a dwarf. I forget which dwarf craftsman of some sort. And the second Gator wrote his character's name down, PK Sullivan, who was right across from him, took his dwarf character and wrote the same last name and was like, no, we're brothers. And as it turned out, Gator's character had 3 personality. So he was despised by like the whole family. And the brother was basically like tagging along because no one actually liked him. But they very quickly, like in that little one shot, made up like a whole thing. And sparked by just the simple fact that PK was like, oh no, we have the same last name because we are brothers. And that was the beginning of like, they started having a little chit chat about what their family was like. So
we had an old Rollmaster game here in Buffalo when I was a little kid, where we had 9 players in the group that were either human, half-elven, or half-orcs. And the whole party concept the GM gave us was that we were all the illegitimate children of the same person.
Oh, neat.
And our whole goal was, where's our dad? And who's he fucking now? Because it ain't any of
So
our
was your
moms.
dad Zeus?
We don't know, but
Just rolling through the countryside? You looked pretty.
we weren't quite as clever though. It sounds like Gator and PK had a much better family relationship than we did.
Oh, no. Gator's character was horrible, right? He was.
That's what made it a better character story.
PK's character died and went to the Great Hall of like the Dwarven gods. And then the Dwarven gods were rooting for Gator to live because if he died, he would have joined them in the hall for eternity. So they were rooting for him to live, become a hero, so he could go to a better afterlife than the eternal hall. It was hilarious.
Shout out to Schmitty driving home. Hey, Schmitty.
Hey, Schmitty. All right. Cool. All right. So 3 ways. I just want to sum that up really quick before we jump to the next point here. There are 3 different things that a character background can do, right? It can do it for the player, right, as way of prep for the player to be in character. It is a source of information for the GM for arcs and plots and emotional investment, and it's a way to create linkages between characters by intermeshing. I don't think you have to intermesh, by meshing backgrounds together. Okay, let's go to the next point, which is all about what we were talking about with the joke that started this whole topic, which was the 10-page player background.
All right. When you look at length of background, this is where the argument comes up all the time, which is how long should you make them? And with the answer like this, it's going to be, it all depends.
Dun, dun, dun.
To be honest, it depends on which background and which group you're working with. It depends a little bit on what the GM requires. And so using the same groups that we talked about before, let's talk about background length.
Right. So if we are talking about solely from a player's perspective, then your background needs to be as long as it needs to be in order to make you feel comfortable playing your character.
That's the key.
Right? This is the same advice I give for GMs, right? Your prep needs to be as long as it needs to be in order to be comfortable running your game. Same thing applies here. If you need 10 pages to get into the head of this character so that when you hit the table you feel like this character, write your 10 pages. If you need an index card with 3 bullet points on it, each one with 2 words each, that's all you need.
Yep.
As long as you hit the table ready to go.
Yep.
Okay. That said, this varies from player to player. This varies with the same player from game to game.
Sure.
Sometimes a player will need no background for their character, and sometimes they will write volumes of background for their character. Both valid. Right? The goal always being that you are comfortable inhabiting your character. And you should just keep writing till you're comfortable with that. And again, like I said, this could just be bullet points. Sometimes it could be pages. And then the other part of this is that, and this is also completely legitimate, is that aside from just being comfortable with your character, this can also just be your own fun of out-of-game play for your character, which is just to keep working on your background. Like, you may just, between games, want to just write stuff about your character, like their childhood, memories, their first adventure, whatever. That's totally legitimate.
Gee, that would make a good topic to talk about.
See, we were just talking about that. All right, so that's the player perspective. My advice is write as much as you want, or write as little as you want. It's okay. But that's true for the player part.
Yes.
How about the GM part?
For the GM part, the GM level, the GM, we want plot hooks to dive into.
Yep.
But we're incredibly busy working on the campaign and backgrounds and other adventures and rules mastery. And we also have to ingest backgrounds from every single character. So it's here the GMs want concise backgrounds from which to pull ideas. Some sort of executive summary or a handful of bullet points is a good length to start. And if the GM reads your summary and wants more, they can ask you for more information about things that pique their interest.
Yes, like I want you to have a 10-page character background as a player. I don't want to read your 10-page background, not because I don't think it's interesting, but really I have to read everyone else's too. So that executive summary, right? If you've never done one for work, right? It's take everything you wrote, boil it down to a couple paragraphs.
And we're going to talk about this later. I don't even really always want you to have a 10-page background written up. And I'll explain why later on.
No, it's fair.
I mean, if it makes you happy, that's great, but I'm not always thrilled with you having a 10-page background written up.
Well, I think we'll talk in the next section. We'll talk about the challenge of that, right? Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
So then at the group level, you don't actually need that much of a background for the group consumption, because normally we don't, as groups, like hand out our backgrounds to each other, right? Like I don't hand out like, here's my background, Jerry. Here's my background, Bob. Please read it. I normally will just tell you some stuff about my character. and then you'll tell me some stuff about your character, and then that's usually how we pick out like, oh, you had an evil uncle. Cool, I had an arch nemesis. Can that arch nemesis be your uncle?
Yes, it can.
Exactly, right? So for the group purposes, you actually don't have to have anything special prepared. Like, you don't need to write the executive summary, and you can have your 10-page thing, but you really should just, sum it up lightly for the players. And then the rest of it's just going to happen interactively. All right. So I've advocated the 10-page background, and there is an argument that is valid that we're going to dip into, right?
Yep.
Which is having a background is great, but it is not game canon until it comes up in the game. Meaning that if you do have your 10-page background and you have not shared it with anyone else, especially the GM, then it may come into conflict, or it may be overwritten by the unfolding story in game. And this becomes tricky because if you have a super long background, asking everyone else in the group to understand it is asking a lot, especially from the GM, but even from fellow players. Like, hey, I need you, Bob, to memorize my 15-page background.
No. That'd be a big negatory, good buddy.
Right. So that is that's the conundrum, right? Okay. But there's some, we could do something about this.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that we can do. The first thing is put the really important parts in the GM summary. If there's something you definitely want to have happen, or something that have to have happened, put it in your summary.
Yes.
And talk about the background in game to establish it as canon. Don't monologue and don't soapbox.
Right.
Just have it come up in game. And those are very different things. And be prepared to be flexible when minor things conflict. If some minor part of your background conflicts with the game, help to make some changes in the background to make it work. And if you need to, ask for changes when major things conflict. When something conflicts with a key part of your background, ask the table to make some adjustments to some way. And involve other players in this.
Yeah.
And it will help to make it work better. If you need to change something major in the game and everybody else in the group is excited about it, your GM will be excited about it, even if it conflicts with their story.
Yeah, because if you're emotionally, I know for me personally as a GM, right? If a player's emotionally invested, I'm more likely to bend the things I was working on to keep them invested than for me to be like, let me show you my brilliant plot, right? Like, I did that phase, right? In the 90s, I did the look how brilliant I am, look at the plot I've made. Now I'm much more about like, cool, is this thing making you excited about the game? Let's work it in.
The rule about being clever is if you think you're being clever, you're not.
Yes.
Yes, which brings up a question. I'm just gonna ask you to hold on to this point for when we get to the end of the
In
segment.
the chat room?
Yes.
The secret thing?
The secret
I
thing.
have it on the list.
Okay, perfect, because we are definitely going to talk about
Oh,
your secret background and why you don't have a secret background.
And I think something that came up, this is not secret backgrounds, but to talk about your thing about getting excited with the players. A good example would be Bob's character in Chris's Eberron game, where Bob had an idea for doing something a little different with his patron, and that wasn't actually out of the D&D book, making your character a fae and follow with a tree and all that. And
Well, actually, I took the Fae patron from the book, but I left it ambiguous. And then Chris said, "Oh, if we made that this sentient tree, the sentient mangrove tree from the swamp, who's part of the gatekeepers." I'm like, "Ooh, I like that. That's good." And it everything came together.
But everybody at the table got excited about it.
Yeah.
And is it canon? Is it part of the existing world? It is now, but it didn't matter because as soon as Chris saw how excited everybody else at the table got about it, he was like, "Yes, we'll adapt whatever we're doing to fit that." Because when the players are excited, when the whole table's excited, as a GM, you're like, "I'll make this work."
And that's a perfect example of that, the peanut butter and chocolate thing, right? Like Bob puts this thing out, and Bob created a space, right? Bob creates a space where he's like, well, I have a patron, I just don't have any description for it, right? And then Chris sees the vacuum and is like, aha, I have something I could put in, like I have something I could put in that place. What do you think about this? And then it connects, or maybe it wouldn't have, and you would have been like, that's not what I was thinking, and Chris would have been like, okay, cool, and like would have pulled it back. Yeah. So I think that's
to me, that's the way you do a good collaborative background.
Yep.
I created a piece.
Yep.
Yes, I'm a warlock. I have a patron, so I picked this one, Faye. But I didn't define it.
Yep.
Chris could have gone a bunch of different ways with it. And then when he started throwing out the ideas, everybody around the table was, ooh, that sounds cool. Oh yeah, this is great. Oh, this fits in well with the current campaign and what we're doing, and it went from there.
Also, on the things that I want to talk about when we reach the break in just 2 seconds is leaving spaces. So if we can talk about leaving spaces as well,
Leaving spaces.
we should talk about that. All right.
That's a big part of what we're going to talk about next.
Yes. All right. Cool. Let's wrap this segment of the main segment up, and jump over to the chat room and see what they have to say about character backgrounds and the like. But Bob, tell me about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
Tonight we're going to talk about bonus experience. Ray and Monica are two old friends exploring gameplay and design through the lens of diversity, while also sharing some of the dumbest humor gaming has to offer. I love that description. That's great.
It's great. I know they wrote that actually. Like it's hilarious.
Yep. So we've got a couple things that I wanted to call out.
Yeah.
Ange was talking about for a game that she played back in the 90s. She made a psychic teen. She was talking about how putting background information out for the GM and the GM ignores it. She had a psychic teen who was an orphan growing up with borderline abusive foster parents.
Ooh, okay.
And then the GM tried to start the first game saying that they were giving her character a car for her 16th birthday.
Yeah.
No, that does not fit with the background that she handed
Right.
you. All right? Pay attention.
And again, right? So this is like and this ties to a previous episode because everything ties to a previous episode. That like backgrounds are also love lettering.
Yes.
Right? They're a form of love lettering. So Anne just saying, with this background, there's some things I would like to explore in the game. But then the GM was like, like your parents buy you a car. Like,
Yeah. Now,
right.
to flip that a little bit, if the GM has some ideas about how they want things to go,
Yes.
and you hand them your character background, and it's like, I'm, a foster care, and these are borderline abusive people, and the GM was like, well, I was thinking about kind of going a little different way. Are you flexible to tweak that maybe a little bit?
Right.
Or are you you really set on exploring that space? Like talk and
Now,
Communication is the key.
Here's a way to actually do both what the GM wanted and what Ange wanted, which is the parents give Ange a car, right? And then they tell her, good, now that you have this car, we have a whole bunch of errands and stuff we need you to run for us.
Yeah.
Right? And what basically the car is more of a burden than a gift.
Yep,
like
you're now our gopher. You're going to do all of this stuff for us.
Right. So so that's a way. So see, that's a part of, and I, I'm doing this as having 30 plus years of experience, right? But, and I'm just going to hypothesize. I don't know anything about this GM, but if the GM's goal was, I'm going to give these teens a car because I need them to be able to get around the city efficiently, right? And the only way I can think about how to do it is that I'm going to have the parents give it to you, which I'm not saying is exactly the right way to do it. But if you're going to go that route, plus you want to honor Ange's background, then using it so that they can basically like workhorse her character
Exactly.
is like, is the peanut butter chocolate.
Yeah.
Right?
Ange just added also that another part of the character background was that she was a bike
Oh man, this GM wasn't even trying.
This GM was just in his
This
own
GM
world.
wasn't even trying. Like,
Or the flip side, the GM didn't communicate to the players what they were looking for.
correct.
That's true.
Because
They
there is
could've
a
said, hey,
not that I want to defend this GM.
No.
No.
But maybe the GM isn't comfortable playing an abusive parent.
That's
Now,
true too.
that is on the GM, right? So
Yeah.
if somebody's background has
Communication.
if somebody's background has a piece you're not comfortable with,
Yep.
like the time that the player asked me about the divorced character,
Yep.
yes, then the GM could have been like, you know what? I kind of had a shitty childhood. I would really actually be uncomfortable
and that's all
having this come out on the table.
the initial talk in session 0 about safety at the table. These are the kind of things you have to.
Yeah. Which remember in the 90s,
Yeah.
we did
in the
not
90s
have.
That didn't happen.
I had a player who wanted to play, who was my ex at the time, we were an ex at the time, and she wanted to play a character who had this horrible, abusive relationship with her grandmother, which mirrored the one in real life. I'm like, I do not want to play this.
Right.
Yeah.
I do not want to GM this at all.
I'm really not keen on that idea.
Yeah.
No.
We're not doing that.
No trauma touring.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Especially when when a player like when a player puts it out there and why
Yeah.
they're putting it out. Like it's one thing if it's one thing if you've had a rosy childhood and then you're like, yeah, I'd like to have like a real problem with my parents, right?
Yeah, I want to explore some stuff that I never experienced.
Correct. It's another one when you know somebody's had like a totally effed up childhood and they're like, I'd like to have some totally effed up parents in this game, and you're like, why?
Do you really?
Yeah.
That's why you need to talk. Communication.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Boo Day.
Boo Day.
When we were talking about lots of games that you like right now are fighting the man and punching Nazis.
Sure. Yep.
Those games that you're picking to play have those things as overarching themes in the game. So
Yes.
you presumably have already got table consent to do that kind of stuff because it's baked in. And that's another thing to take
I have
in mind.
first level consent, right? Because if I've done my cats properly, right? We've talked about content, tone, subject matter. Yes, we've covered some of these things, right? Like if you're playing Hydra Hackers, authoritarianism is part of the game.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right?
You're not just dropping surprise Nazis on people in a game that didn't have it.
Correct. Like
to begin
those
with.
Nazis are built right in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say you have like first level consent because
Yep.
there's a difference between
Sure.
we have some bad guys that are in the whole game, and then it's a very different if it's like, but my dad is a bad guy,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Like now that's a cool storyline to play, right? Like my dad is the water authority, and I'm a Hydra hacker behind his back. Like cool drama.
Yep. But that's a level of.
That's a
You wanna talk
second
about
level
that a little bit,
consent.
yeah.
Like that's another consent layer of consent.
I want to play in a campaign where that's one of the player characters that I'm right alongside with. That sounds like a fun
Yeah,
campaign.
absolutely.
I haven't written it, but inspired by Jason Pitt's optional operator for Headspace, the Insider. I also want an Insider for Hydra Hackers, but borrowing a lot from the Doomed from
Yes.
Masks. Like this character is going to either have to change occupations or die. Like there's only so much you can do before they come for you.
Yep.
Yeah, I very much want to make that.
All right, let's go to the red hot elephant in the room. Secrets in your character background.
I have a secret background that's a secret for all of you.
Nobody
Worst
knows it.
idea ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it seems counterintuitive,
Well,
but if you want your character
yes,
to have a secret,
yes,
you should discuss it with the other players, and the other players should actually know about it.
yes.
And if they're good role players, they can be like, that's player knowledge, character knowledge doesn't have it.
Yep.
And
Correct.
go through, and you will still be able to get shocked reveal moments and stuff like that
Yes.
because it can be done.
Right.
But if you have a secret and nobody knows it, not even the GM.
Well, the worst case
That's
is
the
if
worst
the
one.
worst one is
But
if
even
the
if
GM
you
doesn't
tell
know.
the GM, like that secret,
Right.
Senda knows all about this.
Yeah.
It's like you sit there and it's like, oh, I want to reveal my secret. And either it never gets a chance,
Or trampled.
or it gets trampled on, or nobody cares.
Now, I'll say the next. So the worst one is you have a secret in your background you've shared with no one, right?
Yeah.
That's terrible. Don't do that because no one knows. No one can help you, right? No one can help that secret come along. Only slightly better, and I mean marginally better, is you have a secret and you told the GM and not any of the other players.
Yeah.
Because this bullshit, and I've played this game many a time, this bullshit is then the players like, oh, GM, the thing about the thing that we don't talk about the thing. And then the GM's like, righto, right? And then the other players are like, fuck that person. For instance, many, many years ago, Bob ran a Palladium campaign. In
My
that
infamous Palladium
campaign,
campaign.
Gilgore played a shapeshifter. And early on in the game, we had a hunch that he might be a shapeshifter because I was an elf, he was in the appearance of an elf, and we were somewhere dark and he couldn't see.
He's bouncing off the walls.
And he's like walking into shit, and I'm like, what's wrong with this guy, right? And then we found out about changelings, and after like a few sessions, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I think he's a changeling. So I had a moment with his character, and I was like, look, we've all done terrible things. We're all on the run. If there's something you need to tell me, character to character, this is a good time to tell me. We're among friends. And Sean's like, no, I got nothing to tell you, walks away. Many more sessions later, we're riding in a stagecoach, and Sean's like, whoop, he changes shape, and he's like, I'm a changeling. And I shot his ass out of the stagecoach with a magic bolt. I blew him right out of the back of the stagecoach, flew in the air, hovered over him, and almost killed him. And I was like, because this is the bullshit you get from hiding secrets from. Now, had we had that group discussion, and Sean was like, I'm a changeling on the run kind of thing, but I'm afraid to turn into my human, into my changeling form, we could have all played along and made that really good. But instead, because it was the 90s, it ends up with this like PvP moment where it almost splattered his character across the ground. And then we all got over it.
Yeah.
But it was the needless kind of...
I mean, the worst part about the whole thing was is that there was talk of changeling assassins
Yes.
in the game.
Yes.
Yep.
And everybody was like, are you a changeling assassin? And he's like, I'm not an assassin. Are you a changeling? No, I'm not.
Motherfucker.
And it's like, look, we're just worried that you're a changeling assassin. So come out and tell us who you are.
Yeah, as long as we know you're not a threat to us. Because again, all right, so here's what happens. When a player and a GM are in cahoots with each other for a secret,
Yep.
the rest of the players will want to know. And eventually will want to know bad enough that they will derail every other part of the game to get to the bottom of the secret.
Yep.
And inevitably, this winds up with no one wanting to back down. It's the end of Reservoir Dogs. Everybody's pointing a gun at somebody else, yelling at each other. And your cool secret has gone wildly out of control.
Yep.
Right? I do not, am not a fan, right?
Now, how do you feel about, I'm trying to think how to word this properly. When the player has a secret,
Yeah.
tells the group they have a secret.
Yes.
They don't know the secret, and they want the GM to tell them, there's something you don't know about there's something you don't know about your backstory that I'll help to flesh out for you later on when it becomes important to the story.
Oh, if none of the players know and only the GM has this thing tucked away, that's all right.
And they all
as
agree
long
to
as
it.
everyone consents to that.
Okay. Because I'm actually doing that in one of my games where the player says,
Yeah.
I've got an idea, talk to the rest of the party, I want to have this thing, I don't know why I'm different, I'm just different. And yeah.
As long as players know what's going on,
Yes.
I'm like, I think it's okay. I really don't like when, I know I personally don't like it. Plus, I don't like that thing where the GM and the player are like in cahoots with each other and they're like doing that half talking bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, that's not games I'm playing anymore.
Yeah, Ange has a concern that when you reveal it to all the other players, that it won't matter because everybody already knows and they're just going to brush past the misdirected mark.
Misdirected Mark, word scramble.
Like,
It's acting.
if you give everybody that information and you talk about it ahead of time, and then everybody else is like, whatever, we don't care. Well, that's pretty shitty of those players.
They're not supporting your character. Right.
And what you should be talking about is, okay, not just I have this secret. You should be discussing how does that affect your character?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, how would you feel if that suddenly came out?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
And part of it, having the other players in on the secret, means that they can play both sides of that as well. They can inadvertently help the other player keep the secret by finding ways to not notice things that are going on.
Yeah,
and they can also deliberately misinterpret things in such a way to create role playing where something is like, oh, we just don't happen to notice that while our backs are turned, they change shape again.
Yes.
And that sort of thing.
Yep.
And that makes a better story.
And here's the other thing.
Yes.
It's not always about the player characters learning the secret. It can also be about those player characters finding out the secret and helping that person keep it from other people.
Oh, yeah.
Also
definitely.
a thing.
So
I agree.
you can play into that aspect of it as well.
I will also say that the other thing it does is if I know the secret and it's going to be particularly shocking when it actually comes out to my character, on the side, I'm going to go rehearse. I'm going to go rehearse what I'm going to say, right? Like, I'm going to get ready to like I'm gonna be like, well, you know what? When this bullshit secret comes out, I'm gonna lay into Bob like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah,
And then
Are
between
you talking about out of play gaming on your own?
and then I might, but seriously, like I might be sitting around, like driving in my car, going, you know what? When that secret comes out, I'm gonna lay into. I'm gonna like this is the speech I'm gonna hit him with, which is gonna make this like really dramatic like scene at the table instead of Bob saying it and then I'm like, I don't know, you're a jerk, right?
Yeah.
But if I've like rehearsed the whole thing, it'll be like,
Yeah.
I can't believe you've done this. Like I can't believe, and then like we were brothers. Like
Yeah. Now, Ange followed up saying, the fact of tossing a secret out to everybody at the table and not having any kind of reveal through role play is dumb, in her opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
You want, once you say, I'm going to have this secret and you discuss it at the table, there should be part of that discussion of how do we want, do we want to shoot towards a particular type of reveal, or are we gonna let it try, like see if it comes out organically? Like you should be discussing the reveal as part of the fact that secret exists.
Well, and I love what.
And then if everybody's like, this really doesn't, like you might get through the discussion and be like, you're right, maybe the secret isn't as cool as I thought it was going to be when I had the idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, there should be some kind of reveal through role play. Absolutely.
And I love what Jerry said, right? Like, because you can totally play like you can assist by being like, oh no, I totally didn't see that.
Yeah.
Like, or I saw it, but I just think it was shadows or something, right? Like I wasn't actually clued into what was going on.
And you can role play even more. You could literally do the Monica Chandler Joey thing from Friends, where all the players know the secret, but one player does know, or one character does know, another one's trying to keep the secret, is stuck in the middle. There's some role playing gold.
Oh, absolutely.
As
you don't want to be Joey, though.
I advise
Being
you do
Joey
that in
sucks.
role-playing games. Do not do it in real life.
No, do not do it in real life.
I'm sorry.
I hated being Joey.
I'm sorry, Bob. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Bob has been my Joey more than once in my life.
I'm Bob.
Oh boy.
All right,
But no, there's a lot of good role playing potential there if you share the information and play as a party.
Yeah, I think there's actually more role-playing potential than if you hide it and make all the other players scramble to try to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Jump.
Spaces. One last thing.
Yes, leaving spaces.
Okay. Here's my advice. Gonna write 10 pages of background. Bob had a really good tip earlier. Write 10 pages of background, or you're gonna write 5 pages, or you're gonna write 5 bullets, 5 words. Leave some space. You don't have to write everything so precise and concisely. Like, if you are a member of a royal family, you can just say, I'm a member of a royal family. Leave it, like, that's a space.
If you sit down and you go, okay, my character once worked for a Chinese triad organization known as the Golden Triad.
The Golden Carp.
And the Golden Carp Triad.
Right.
And the Golden Carp Triad is run by a guy named Choji. And Choji's got a monkey that he jacks into his eye with a cable, and the monkey sees the stuff, and it's like, whoa, it's so wild, and it'll be fun.
But
that's a ton of detail.
Yes.
That might not fit into what the GM already has.
Correct.
If you say, I worked for a criminal organization.
Yes.
And I was in close with the person who heads that criminal organization.
Yes.
That's a good bit that you have an idea of who you are and what you've done in your past, and somebody that you're familiar with and maybe on really good terms with. But you haven't given the super deep details so that the GM can then go, oh yeah, that would work great if it was the razor fangs and you were the ex-boyfriend of the leader, and she had a falling out with you or whatever. Like, now you're getting into some collaboration with people at the table, and you're making everything fit better.
Yeah, and that is, I think, key, right? You want to create enough of a background that you could be like, I was part of a criminal organization and tight with its leader, and then loose enough that the GM or another player can grab that and put a piece in.
Yep.
Yeah. So make spaces, right? This is the Dungeon World equivalent of leave blank spaces on maps.
Yep.
Right. It allows you to draw things in. All right. Cool. Do we have anything else on the list? That was a powerful chat room.
That was a powerful chat, yes.
Sounds like it's almost its own segment.
All right.
Cool.
Back into the thing.
Back into the breach. Getting back, we are in the second half of the segment, and the second half of the segment is always our roundtable. And I'm going to open it up with a question at the player, in the player focus. As players, how do you make your backgrounds for your characters, and how is it different between a one-shot and a campaign? Who wants to go? Jerry, go first.
Well, here we go.
Jerry's got some feelings on this.
I grew up in the '80s, and we had some GMs. We used to do ridiculous background for characters. We had some GMs who demanded it of you. We had a GM who wanted 12-page summaries of your character background. They wanted your racial culture.
For every character?
Oh yeah, my ex.
Oh, I forgot what it was like to have free time.
My ex used to ask every player coming to play her D&D game to give her like a 10-page description of the race. What were their cultures? What happened when you grew up? What happened when you hit puberty? What are the traditions? What are the names of all the gods? She wanted all that written up for your character and how you interacted with all of that. We had a traveler GM who wanted you to tell him which planet you were from. Now describe the entire planet for me, the biomes, the culture, and everything like that. We had character binders back then. And when we had time, that was a lot of fun. But nowadays, I go for a minimal character background. I just want to get it short to the point. Normally just a few motivations, maybe an NPC or two for the GM to hook on, at least one complication, something that didn't go right in my background. Some bad secret, a crime, a meddlesome family member. And then I also try to find some links to the party, something that I'm doing that ties into the party members. And put all that together and get it to the GM as quickly as possible. And this is something that I think I don't see enough of, or I'm seeing now, but I didn't see enough of with a lot of player characters who don't put complications in their backgrounds. They were always like, oh, I was the son of a farmer and I found a magic sword and then I was a grave warrior. And I literally had a player whose description was, he did all these cool things and then he came upon the party being beset by orcs and they were about to lose and then he showed up and saved them.
Right.
That was his link to the party. I'm like, no, absolutely not. No, that's horrible. Nobody wants you at the party. As a GM, I stole this idea from somebody else. And I think it was somebody here, that your character background should be no more than 3 paragraphs. And each paragraph should be no more than 3 sentences. And that's it. After the 9th sentence, I just stop reading. You can give me 5 paragraphs, but after 9 sentences, I just stop reading. That's it. If you can't summarize your character like that, that's too much background because we want to develop it in the game. I'm flexible on this, obviously, if somebody's got more stuff to go into, but I don't want to see somebody who hands me 3 pages of backstory. Write it for yourself, but I'm not considering anything after the 9th line to be canon, and you shouldn't expect it to be either because we may have to do things in the game. For most games, not every game, I'm flexible on this, but it keeps us from getting stuff because I've had players even recently who want to give me pages and pages of backstory about their character and names of every important person in their background, and there's no room to do anything with it in the game once it's going. So, yes. Bob?
Yeah, so I used to do some fairly deep backgrounds for some of my characters. I didn't do it all the time, but I used to go pretty deep for some of them back in the day. But I have evolved over the course of my time playing, and now Leaving Spaces is really, it's kind of like my jam. I want to give the GMs bits to jump onto my background stuff and use it to make things deeper connections and collaborate with everything. So I try to just give enough to make myself comfortable with who the character is, and then let everything else kind of organically grow. I like to leave spaces so that if something comes up during the course of the game, it's like, oh, you're in this town, and this town, there was a time when something happened here and part of the town got burned down. I was like, oh yeah, I remember I came through town that time and there was a whole thing going on, and then like now I've tied myself to another event in the game and fleshed out my backstory a little more. I like having it grow organically like that. When it comes to one-shots, as we've already said in the chat room, ride it like you stole it. So I try to lean into whatever's on the character sheet, depending on what kind of game it is. If it's a full pre-gen, I look at what's there and I say, okay, what things on here can I really take and run with, as far as like what's their best skill or their best feature, those kind of things. Something like a PBTA game where you get to make some of it up on the fly as you're picking. Then I'll lean into things like the bonds when we create them. Like, okay, I've got a connection to you. We're going to run with that, and we're going to have some fun role playing that. Pick the nuggets out and work with the stuff that's there on the sheet. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, so I when in the 80s, back when in the rare occasions where I did play, because I was actually really almost always the GM. Largely because all my friends didn't want to be the GM, so that's how we played. Because Phil,
I have no idea what that's like.
right, Phil GM. I would make characters, and then my thing was, and I don't know what my problem was back in the 80s. I was obsessed with, I need to be as original as possible. So like I'd work my ass off coming up with these like ridiculous backgrounds, so that they were like totally unique and not like a character from another, like from a story I saw or anything like that. Which was probably like way too much work. Like I've chilled out about that over time. Like now I'm like, no, I have like a Batman like Tony Stark like background, right? Like sometimes I even use those words, like I'll use those kind of references in my backgrounds. My background choices now have everything to do with what kind of game we're playing. If the game is lighter, pulpier, whatever, I will go with a pretty thinned out background.
Okay.
I don't need too much. Like when we played Dungeon World with Chris, Corin's background, Corin had no background.
Yeah.
Like literally the only thing we knew was he was from a place called the Axe-Torn Valley.
Yep.
And the sheet basically made me, the playbook made me define something about that. But everything about Corin was, had nothing to do with his background and had everything to do with his immediate nature. But I've done other characters where I will write out index cardish, about index card worth of background, almost always a bulleted list.
Yep.
What I need when I'm playing a character, and I can get this either from personality or whatever, but I look at the character sheet and then I'm like, how do I want to play this character? And then what do I need to mentally justify that to myself? Right? Like, what is my, like, how much background do I need to be, like, if I'm going to be a cop with a gold heart kind of thing, what in my background makes me a cop with a gold heart? Maybe something happened to me or my family when I was a kid and a cop helped me, right? Like I just need like that piece. Like if this is my archetype for my character, what's the piece in my background that I need for that? And that doesn't even have to come up in game. It's just mentally, literally that piece for me that's like, oh, I once like my, my dad was a drug dealer and got killed. And this cop, found me in this crack house and took me in as his own.
Okay.
Right? And like, I became a cop because I really, because he saved me, and I'm kind because that's what I learned from him. Whatever. Like that's how and then that's like, and if the rest of that comes up in game, like maybe I'll say it in game, or I'll explain it to the players as we're playing. But really, I just need that piece to get me to, I want to play a cop with a golden heart. Why?
Yeah, shorthand trigger to get you into that mental space.
That and if it's a one shot, I will still do that with no expectation of sharing it.
Yeah.
Like it is literally just the internal piece I need to get into the character and have some idea of what my motivation is going to be in the game. But if it's a one shot, I have zero expectation that anyone at the table cares about it, that the GM's going to try to work it into the game or anything like that. I'm just like, nope, it's solely for me. Like it's a me thing to get into this character. That's it. But yeah, I don't know what that bullshit about being super original in the 80s. I don't know what that was about, but it made way more work for me.
It's akin to being clever.
Oh, it really was. It was really the.
Well, it's because we were teenagers in the 80s, and so of course we were the next great writers. So of course we were geniuses. We
Yeah.
were amazing.
My-
Oh yeah.
My
I know
dad,
that.
my dad used to always do this thing when we would watch TV and stuff, where he'd be like, "That's hokey," right? Like that's cliche, that's hokey kind of thing, and it really did a number on me to be like, "I'm gonna make something that's not cliche." But like you find out when you're older, like everything's a derivative work of everything else, right? Like
All the good stuff's been done before.
it's not original; it's just uniquely arranged.
Yeah.
Occasionally one thing pops up that's original, and when it is, everybody fucking knows it's original, and it's like lightning in a bottle. You can't make that shit happen.
And then invariably there's the copycats that are like, oh, we need to try and draw off of that.
My best example of that is Dominion. I had never seen a game like Dominion, even though I'm sure Mo will tell me that there was a game like Dominion before Dominion. But like I saw Dominion, and there was nothing like it, and then like a year later there were 10 games like Dominion.
Yep.
And honestly, some of them better. I like better than Dominion. Like I like Star Realms better than Dominion, right? Like there was definitely an improvement on the model, but occasionally somebody sits on somebody strikes something unique. Most times we're just rearranging the pieces and trying to make it look nice.
I think the key is not necessarily to go for originality. Go for something that's fun for you and the table.
Yes.
You know, make it that's fun, and when you're trying to make those backgrounds, try to find ways to make it something that the GM and the other players can play off of. I think that's also key. You want your background to be dynamic, make it something that the other people at the table can get involved with.
Yeah.
Like you said, you know, the mentors being tied together,
Yeah.
or something like that, or even just being brothers or rivals. But as long as the other players can interact, then they're going to care about it.
Yeah. Look, it's not some TV show where you're going to be judged on originality, style, and showmanship. Okay.
Yep.
That's not how that works. So you know you don't have to be like, I'm
chill
going to
out.
be the most creative.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm totally fine where I'm like my characters, like it would be totally fine. Now, our young listeners won't understand this, but if we were sitting around playing a police procedural game and I was like, oh, my character's like fish. Right? See, you both laughed, right? Like sometimes that's all you need, right?
Yep.
Like that's not original, but you all got it. Senda. Barney Miller was a TV show in the 1970s.
Yes.
That was a police procedural, and the great Abe Vigoda, who in his 40s looked like he was 60,
Yep.
played Detective Fish.
And had his own spin-off sitcom.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. It's spun off.
Okay, if you're playing Fish, I want to play one of the characters from Cop Rock then.
Oh, jeez.
Oh man.
All right.
You would have to presume that I've seen Cop Rock more than once.
I saw a
don't think
commercial for
anybody saw
Cop
Cop-
Rock, and I was like, no.
I'm pretty sure nobody saw Cop Rock more than once.
Oh, don't taunt the internet.
Yeah.
Don't taunt the. There'll be a tweet next week. They'll be like, I totally watched all of Cop Rock. I loved it. Best show. Greatest show. It's perfect. It's a perfect show.
There's nothing more perfect than Cop Rock.
Jerry, please.
All right.
End this with another question.
2. When GMing, how do you as a GM like to deal with character backgrounds? So, Bob, how do you wish the GMs would deal with them with you?
Yeah, so I would really, I think GMs need to pay attention to the love letters. Okay, when players give you that bulleted list, you have to at least pick something from it and say, okay, I'm going to use this. Don't look at what they've got there and go, okay, that's cool stuff, I'm ignoring it. We've already gone over that. It's like that goes nowhere towards making you a friend of the player if you ignore all of their stuff. Oh, you're a bike messenger, here's a car. No, that's not going to work. Also, something that we've kind of discovered over the last few shows, go back periodically and look over the stuff. Go back and look at the notes. When people make their characters and they give you that bulleted list, whatever, take notes, make pictures with your phone, keep their character sheets if that's the kind of game that you play where you take the character. Go back and review that stuff every once in a while and go, okay, hey, have I hit something from this player's character background yet? Like, ooh, I haven't hit something from this character yet. I've been focusing over here and here and here. So go back, review, and make sure you're not missing something. Or let's say somebody gave you a bulleted list and they're like, in this order, ranked by priority. Like they tell you, this is something that I really, and you didn't hit that yet. like now you need to step up your efforts and you need to do it. So, keep track of that information, go back and review it every once in a while, and then while they're playing, take hints. If somebody starts, kind of going in a certain direction, listen. So
You want to get your players invested in your game. When they hand you those bullet points, if you open up your notebook and go, ooh, and start making notes based off of their cards, they're going to be super excited because you're telling them right off the bat that what they just did matters. And you'll get them involved even in a one-shot. I've seen GMs do that where you hand them, even at a convention game, here's some information, and they go, hold on a second, I want to write this down. You're going to be more invested in that character right off the bat. I like that. Phil?
Yeah, I don't actually want. I'm not into writing. Like, I'm not into players handing me written down backgrounds. Not like being snobby or weird about it, but I get that stuff out at the table during session 0, session 1. So I like to go around the table and ask questions, and I get a lot of this. My like for this comes from a game that I have a lot of mixed feelings about, which is Amber Diceless, which had the 20 questions. Remember the 20 questions? Yep. And I'm a huge fan of 20 questions. I like to do it as a group activity. I don't hand out the 20 questions as assignments, and I don't even do 20 questions anymore. I do it a little more open. Although I will often come up with some questions like, if we're playing masks, like why are you a superhero? Or why are you putting your life on the line for this? But what I like is I like to ask those questions and then ask each player. And then I just have index cards where I write it down. Like I have an index card for each player, and I'm just jotting notes down. Like, oh, okay, his parents have a drinking problem. Are you skipping school, Bob? Right? Is that like are you are you a good student? Or are you skipping school? Okay, skipping school, cool. Right, and then other players will tap into that because it's collaborative, right? And then sometimes that's how that cross-linking goes. Like when we did Things from the Flood, we were talking about Tony's dog. And Tony's background was like he was living in this cramped apartment and couldn't have a dog. So very quickly, you and Glenn were like, oh, I think the dog lives at Marianne's place, right? And it was like, oh, cool. And we sorted that out as a group.
Yep.
So I really if I'm doing this as a campaign, in a one-shot, I ask like 2 questions and then we're off and running, right? But as a campaign, I like to do it as part of my session 0. And yes, it makes the time from when we're talking about the game till we actually get to the table to play a scenario longer. But I often leave that session with a much better feeling of who the characters are, which gives me a lot of material, not even to start writing plots, because I don't B-plot until 4 sessions in, because I got to see if a game has legs or not. But what it does tell me is it gives me little bits where I can be like, I could open up my session and be like, cool, Bob, so you're skipping school. Where are you hanging out when you don't go to school? Right? And that, boom, now, boom, we're connected, we're in. So that's very much, that is very much my thing, is I don't like, I don't want you to write and send it to me. You could, it's okay, and I'll archive it, but it's better if you just tell me and we talk about it as a group.
Okay.
Alrighty.
You want me?
Yeah, good.
All right. First of all, these are my opinions, and I have feels. But to be honest, I just want base outlines. I want to know who you are, where you're from, what's an important thing that happened, and what's your relationship to the rest of the party. That's really what I'm looking for to start the game. And I want you to have some sort of family. If you want to be an orphan, that's great, but you were raised by somebody, and they treat you as family. I don't want any of this, I have no connections to anyone or anything or any place bullshit.
No, I think it's totally legitimate, right?
If that's how you want to play the game, you should probably find another GM.
I will say this, if you want to have that, I reserve the right to write all of that down for myself and inflict it on you during the game.
Okay.
Like, if you want to be like, cool, I don't know who I am, I fell from Earth and you found me in a crater, then I'm like, okay, like...
You may not like
but see, that's different than everybody I grew up with is dead.
Yeah. My whole town was killed. I have no loved ones left. Like, no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bude
Yeah.
mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Like, I GM'd for a barbarian who started with his whole home village and all of his family and friends dead and gone.
Yep.
It's like, well, thanks, that was very helpful and useful.
Yeah,
Nah.
I got nothing to I got nothing to work with here. Yeah.
I really prefer that a lot of the background hooks are going to come from play, and I would word it appropriately. Use the character hooks, drive plots with them, give the players room to help define the world around them. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the next question. But I think that's something that you can have. It goes back to that fill in the blanks thing. I don't necessarily want you to have everything so defined that it keeps everybody else from doing something. So that leads us to the next question, which is, as players, do you ever update your background after initially creating it? Do you ever add to it, refine it, redefine it after a couple of sessions have passed? So, Bob?
Yeah, absolutely. The process that I've already laid out about leaving spots, going kind of more generic, and adding detail on the fly, that leaves room for you to make adjustments. And sometimes it'll be like, oh, I had something written down where like, oh, I had a sister that made poor decisions and got into trouble, and then we come up on something that's like, oh, there's a person, this man could be integral to something, and you're like, oh, instead of my sister, maybe it was my uncle who made all the bad decisions. And I've done something like that where I'm like, hey, well, I'm going to tweak this and I'm going to go the other way with it. So yeah, I always look for an opportunity. If something fits the game better and the current story, or if it's cooler than what I originally came up with, it's like, oh yeah, this is okay, but it's now looking back on it, it's kind of lame. Or this is way more interesting.
Oh yeah.
Boy, I'll tweak and I'll pivot on it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go with it.
I mean, unless it's, like something that was played already. Like if I said, okay, my background, I've got the sister, all right? And I mentioned it, and then it never came up. Then it's easy for me to go, instead of the sister, maybe it was my uncle, and now I connect myself to this other NPC.
Yep.
But if I've already got the sister and we've done something and the sister's been in the game, then I definitely won't do that because
Sure.
you've already trod that ground. You don't want to take something and invalidate something that's already been done.
Yeah, I don't like to needlessly retcon.
Yeah, that's pushing it too far. But if it's open, then I'm like, yeah, sure, let me pivot that a little.
As a player, for myself, I really think that I want to always be trying to make new connections to the situation. You can ask the GM some leading questions, like, well, from my time at the Plague Rats, do I recognize anybody in the bar? Or if the GM introduces their named villain, is he one of the Space Force who killed my brother? Or even better yet, is he the one who broke my heart on prom night? Go with something like that. The GM will probably jump on that and run with it.
If you're going to toss that out there, I'm going to take that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that TikTok
Phil
video.
will
If you're going to
definitely-
do this, I'm going to do that, right? Like,
Yep.
if you're going to do this, I'm going to do that.
Am I secretly in love with the British spy captain?
Yes, you are. Tell me why it ended so badly. Like, I'm going to come back at you, right? Like, if you're going to put that thing in front of me, I'm coming back with even a harder question.
And this goes into my next point, which is this goes into GM and player interactions, because if we're talking about GMing, I love to use leading questions as a GM, which you can hear all about in Misdirected Mark 370. This can help the players develop their backgrounds. Who's the bartender? Why don't they like you? You said you grew up in a noble house. Tell me about one of the other servants who worked there. Used to be a member of the jaunting empire destroying intuitive space wizards. What did they do that made you leave? This happened in a Star Wars game I was running where one of the players encountered a group of bounty hunters. And the bounty hunters have been kind of crossing paths, but they really hadn't actually met them yet. And I wanted to have them fill in a little bit, and I asked one of the players to tell me something unusual about one of the bounty hunters. Without missing a beat, in character, he said, "What is my brother doing leading a group of bounty hunters?"
Yeah, that's good.
Well,
Yeah, that's a good player right there.
Yep, that just changed the whole story, made those more than just a group of endless mooks.
Yep.
And I started taking notes copiously.
Yeah, so you throw them a Benny or something. Even if the game doesn't have Bennies, you just throw them a Benny. Like,
Flip one of those dark side points over to the
good
light side.
job. Good job,
you're
player.
happy.
Throw you your fish.
Well done.
And speaking about that,
Yeah.
you also might want to look at games that have mechanical effects for rewarding this kind of background play. We talk a little bit about this in episode 383 where they talked about life paths, But you can look at things like in Savage World settings, they have some rules. Some settings have rules for things that they call hobbies or special interests. And those are not skills. They're a certain set of additional abilities you get in Savage Worlds equal to half your smarts die that you can set up at any time during the game, even in the middle of a scene, that ties back to your background. And Mage Kayla here was in one of our games, and she played a spellcaster race in a noble house. And she decided mid-game that she had a special interest in weaving in fabrics because of her time with the ladies in waiting. And it made sense that allowed her to identify fabrics when trying to explore a mystery, or sense patterns in some sort of ancient drawings and that sort of thing. The players have this, hey, I did this, it's in my story. Sure, toss them a +1, give them a Benny, give them advantage when they're trying to figure this out because they've already described it as part of their background. And there are lots of games that do that, and then they're going to flesh their background out even more and use it over and over again. Phil, how do you like to build your character once the game's going?
Oh man, I gotta tell you, I think I'm bad at this, right? Like, I think I'm bad at this because once the game gets started, like, once I've jump started my character and I know who they are, and and now that I've played them a couple times, like, if my background comes up, cool. If it doesn't, probably not too bent about it, because normally, like, my normal style of play is to come up with an in-game goal and start driving towards it. So I don't tend to need too much. But I will also say this. I think this is partially, like, as you guys were talking, I had this, like, terrible revelation that I realized I'm like at least a week and a half away from therapy, where, like, I routinely obliterate my past. Like, I don't have a lot of childhood memories, and I don't have any childhood friends. I have a handful of friends from high school. I have no real friends from college. I have no friends from previous jobs I've ever worked. Like, just a handful, but most of them are gone. And then I have, like, you guys. Like, for reasons I suspect have to do with my childhood, like, I routinely obliterate my past. And I think I do that to my characters. Like, my character background is, like, enough to jumpstart my character. And then once my character's rolling, like, I'm in the moment.
Yeah,
like,
I'm
playing this part, and if my past never comes up again, doesn't matter. I'm a little disturbed by this revelation, to be honest. I'm a little concerned about what this actually means. Like I said, I have hunches about why that's the case, but it was dawning on me today as we were talking about, like, I was thinking about the show before while I was at work today, and realized, like, I don't have any, like, past colleagues I'm friends with. Like, they're gone. Like, just.
I've got one, and that's it.
Yeah, I just.
I know that feeling.
My friends from high school are, like, my good friend, my really good friends from high school were all my gaming group, and I, like, still am friends with them. But I sometimes don't recognize people I went to high school with. And I graduated from a class of 189. Like, it's not a big school, right?
Yeah, that's
like,
relatively small.
Yeah.
But God, like in the back of my brain is, like, Thanos dusting everything behind me. Like, I just routinely obliterate my past. Anyway, that's creepy. But I guess to go to that point, I don't often go back on my background to fix those things. Sometimes I will do the thing that you said, where if it hasn't been worked into the game and I can change it to fit something, I do like that. I really like the thing that Jerry said. Like, as a player, I sometimes do that, but man, as a GM, if a player starts tossing that shit at me, like, you're my fave, because you're just making magic for me,
You're
right?
they're spitting diamonds
Spitting,
over here.
you're really, like,
Yeah.
if you're putting that out there at the table, we're gonna have a good time, because I'm gonna do the thing that, like, I'm gonna do the thing that Jerry and I did, where you're gonna tell me, like, is any of my ex-lovers here, and I'm gonna be like, yes. And how did you break their heart, and why are they trying to kill you?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm gonna come right back.
Oh, yeah.
With like, cool. You want to bring it here? I want to bring it one notch higher, and then let's have some fun, right? Like, let's get into it.
Let's have some fun.
And this
Yeah.
is going to go back
Let's
to
have
something.
some fun.
This is something that goes back to something we talked about last week, which is also, as a player, you can also play off the other characters' backgrounds to help them build it. 'Cause
Yeah.
if you, as a player, see something that another character might have in their background that they might miss, you can ask that same leading question of the player. We see this. Chris and Bridget are really good at that in the Eberron game I'm playing in, GMing, where they will often ask other player characters stuff they've mentioned about their character background just to get them influencing it
up.
again. And that, of course, leads to the whole party being tighter and being invested in that background again.
Yep.
Never be afraid as a player to ask another player about their background. Don't tell them their background.
Yeah.
Ask them a question.
Oh yeah, if you
that's
asked
a lot of fun.
if you asked me a question about my background, yeah, I would just role play right into it, right, and start talking about it. But if left to my own devices, like, you know,
I just want to ask you a question because I've never seen the Amber Dice List thing.
Sure.
I used to have GMs, and I stole this a couple times. I used to give everybody a questionnaire at the beginning of the game, which things like, how do you feel about magic? How does your character feel about the nobles? And I used to do that a lot. I don't want to do that anymore.
So the Amber one was kind of wide open, right? It had some really specific questions about some of the greater powers in the universe, and then I think like literally question 18 was boxers or briefs.
Yeah, and that was kind of a running joke. Every campaign after that, like the last question was boxes or briefs.
And then people would just name all the other variants, like
Yeah.
neither.
Thong.
Which, by the way, boxers or briefs is a terribly sexist question.
Oh, absolutely.
Like looking back on looking back on the 90s with today's glasses, that's a terrible question to ask.
Terrible
It is.
question.
It implies
If you really want to ask that question, then what type of underwear do you
what
like
kind
to
of
wear,
undergarment,
if any?
Exactly. Like it had an implied.
That was a very male-centric
It
question.
did. It had an implied male-centric piece.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, and that's the little pervasive bullshit that has junked up like my head from being a kid in the 80s and 90s. Like that shit was like in every game book, and it was pervasive, right?
Yeah.
And so you just like I get to now where I realize like that junk is still like crust. Like I'm still chipping that shit off the walls, right? Like it's bad.
I listened to I listened to a different podcast that talks about game analysis, and one of the things they always talk about with old games is, does it pass the test for seduction? If seduction is always seduction of the opposite sex,
Right.
then it fails.
Right.
The idea that your character can't be found attractive by
It
them
could
is
fail
insane.
harder. It could be seduction of females. Right.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I didn't say it can't get worse. I'm saying it automatically fails if the only
Opposite
option
sex, right.
is or you're attractive, you get a bonus to members of the opposite sex.
You are applying two genders.
Exactly.
I don't know if you remember this, but if we're just as a side, as a
go ahead.
tangent, one of the very problematic things about Palladium is that in its mental illness section of
good
one
God.
of the games, kink, homosexuality, like a number of those things are listed.
Under mental illnesses?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, because, and I think the justification was, and poorly, was that they were going by whatever that stupid ass handbook was.
Yeah.
That for the longest time categorized homosexuality and kink as an actual mental illness. Like, it's a problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
central casting
that's
did
a
that
no-go.
too.
Right. It's a real fucking problem. Central casting did that?
Yep, central casting. When you get to the section on mental illnesses, listed homophobia as one of them. Or homosexuality.
Right.
No, homophobia is a mental illness. Homosexuality is not.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go.
Sorry.
Correct.
But you go back to the granddaddy of them all. We talk about gender problems. Dungeons and Dragons, where male characters and female characters had maximum stats that were different.
When I showed Senda that in 1E, she like lost her shit on that. I'm like, well, if you're female, your strength ends here.
Yes.
These numbers are just for boys.
Yes.
Like,
Oh my God.
No. Stop.
we have come, there are times where it feels like we haven't come a long way, and there are times where we've made some progress, but like it was bad.
Yes,
like,
but 5e still does not have a random prostitutes table.
God damn it, Jerry. Get us to the end of the show. Get out,
All right, then.
Getting out my broom. Sweep this shit out of here. Anyway, that's our take on character backgrounds. If you want more info on backgrounds, you can jump in the Wayback Machine and hit up Pandas Talking Games episode 126, Backstories Back.
All right.
We hope you found it informative. We're going to check in one more time with the chat room, and then we're going to head over to Conversation Corner and just kind of talk about what's going on.
Yeah. So Ange made another comment earlier about being flexible depending on what a player is giving her as the GM. Some players are better at creating backgrounds that add to the story of the game as a whole and provide openings for other players, while other players create things that are maybe too insular, not really useful enough for the game as a whole. So you have to also be flexible with the, maybe help coax some stuff out of that character through conversation, some leading questions, or maybe, just not everybody has to give you the same stuff.
And there's two things that could be going on, right? So the one thing could be that the player's just not very versed in improv, right? The art of improv is, again, like you were saying before about creating those openings. The other one could be a control/trust issue where it's like, no, I'm defining it this way because I don't trust you to put your chocolate in my peanut butter.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just going to make it myself. Right. And the cool part is that if that player does want to learn how to be more interactive and collaborative, like it's a skill. Like you can learn that. You can, with a little trust and a little practice, you could learn that.
One of the things I used to do when I used to do a lot of point-based game systems was I gave out extra points during character creation when other players helped a player flesh out their backstory or their
Oh, that's
character.
cool. Yeah.
You could gain extra point or two just by hey, you know what, I've got an idea to help you with that, or if it's like I have no idea what I want to do. Well, what about this or what about that? And it number one, rewarded the players that were just really good at doing that. It also got the min-max players to seriously try to help everybody at the table. And in a way that I did not originally intend it to happen, they got better at designing characters that were more party-oriented because they got more points if they worked with the party as opposed to lone wolves. Didn't think about it that way, but it worked that way.
Fucking min-maxers will put whatever the reward system is, min-maxers will seek it, find it, and optimize it. Yeah, you might as well put it to your own use, right?
I wish I was that smart back then to know that's why I was doing it. All right.
Anything else in the chat room?
I think we're good. We're
good chat room
room's
tonight.
kind of
real good chat room tonight.
Railing on Palladium for being bad.
Listen, I played a lot of those fucking games.
Oh yeah.
And now, here's the weird part, right? Like now, having come out queer, like I feel icky about. Yeah. I'll be honest. I just never used those sections.
Yeah.
But I bought all those games.
Yeah.
Right. Like I own. They're still somewhere in a box in my basement. Like I own all those fucking.
And
games.
Ange pointed out they don't get a pass on that stuff because the DSM took out homosexuality as a mental illness in 1973.
Yeah, I believe it took them longer to take the kink stuff out, though.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
I think that kink was in there for like S&M, right? So sadist and masochist, those I think lingered in there for some time.
Yeah.
Make the sounds. Let's go to the conversation.
Yeah, let's do the thing with this thing here.
Alrighty.
Yay.
Cool stuff. Welcome to the Conversation Corner, where we spend a little time talking about ourselves.
Our stuff.
And what's been going on.
What's
Bob, what's been going on with you, man?
So I'm kind of still integrating into the new role at work.
Yeah.
It's been a little slow because, people have to make time to give me some training sessions on some of the stuff and things like that. So days are sometimes a bit of a grind because they're a little slow. Once I get into the groove and actually start doing some work, then things will roll along. But it's been kind of a surprise to a certain degree. Somebody. Was it Kevin Lovecraft or was it maybe Brett? Somebody on Twitter one day said something about going out and looking for a new career, and it's like, is it too late? And I said, no. I said, it's never too late. I have been doing some kind of user support for more than 30 years, and I just went, user support is behind me now, walked away into something completely different, and I'm going to be 54 in a couple of weeks, a week and a half, whatever. I'm like, it is never too late to start over with a new career. And it didn't even make me flinch. Honestly, it was just oh, this is interesting stuff. If they open up a new position, I might go for it. And my boss at the time was like, you should try for it if they open up a new spot. And then I did, and he backed me 100% and praised me to everybody involved. And it's like, wow, all of a sudden I've made a career change, and there was like no anxiety about it. There was no, of course, it helps making a career change in the same organization. So you're still seeing a bunch of the same people every day, and
you have you know the organization,
and you know the organization
Yeah.
well, and you're familiar with it. So that definitely helps.
You know what your support network's going to be, all that.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, that's been a lot of my mental process during the week, is just trying to get through the dull parts and try and get up to speed on everything. Again, last week Jerry and I both have similar weeks with the week O gaming.
Yeah.
And the Eberron game that we're playing on Friday night with Chris GMing is so much fun. And we added a new player, Dennis, who I forget where Chris knows him from, but he's like, I got a new person that I want to bring in if it's okay. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. And he has fit in so well at the table and in the group. And we've had some great role playing. We pulled a heist twice, and it's just been a whole lot of fun. So. Looking forward to those Fridays that come around when we do that game. We just had our most recent session of the Forbidden Lands game with all the spreadsheeting and
Session
stuff.
17.
Session 17.
Nice.
But that game, again, it's scratching an itch, and we're not giving that up anytime soon.
No. We're only about to begin the campaign.
Yeah, we've been just doing a lot of free play and just establishing, what's going on and who the characters are and getting ready for a stronghold and all that. And yeah, the campaign's getting ready to ramp.
It's going to start.
Excuse me, ramp up. Ooh.
As soon as you kill the moat monster.
Yeah. But yeah, that's and I've been trying to catch up on TV and stuff. So, Jerry.
Well, last week had my long week gaming. Got to play Monster of the Week on Monday for the FM gamers. Jesse Edmund is just doing a wonderful job of creating a kind of zany, off-the-wall, part Doctor Who, part monster hunting kind of game.
Neat.
Wednesday night we did Scum and Villainy, which I think we're coming close to the end of.
Are you about to do your job?
I have no idea what that means, but sure.
There's a thing in Scum and Villainy when your relationship with one of the groups goes high enough, the group offers you one last job, and it's basically your cash out of the game.
I think we're close to that. I think we're.
Are you guys using that rule? Like, that's a rule in the game.
Yeah, I think we're still a little bit off of that, but we're probably getting close.
Yeah, we've got so many personal investitures and things, and changed a few things, and accidentally blew up an entire star system. That kind of changed how things went. We did something Chris was not expecting and blew up a star and all the planets that were in it. And,
Yeah. Oops.
mistakes may have
happens.
been made. And then we had Thursday night DCC
Yeah.
with a certain GM, and Bob is still a pair of eyes. So,
Forgot about that
It's,
again.
Sir,
That
Sir
character,
Percy, the roving
poor Sir
eyes.
Percy, nothing but a set of eyes and an unconscious body,
Not together.
not together.
and that's one of those games where I've got a strong backstory for one character, a medium backstory for Mock Just Mock, and character number 3 who, to be honest,
If he dies,
if
in
he,
a,
If he dies, he dies.
if he dies, he dies. If he doesn't die, I'll actually be more disappointed.
right.
So,
So people know when you play DCC, after you play the funnel, you're allowed to play multiple characters up to level 3. And at level 3, you need to pick a
Narrow it
character
down,
and go with it. Because so this party in this dungeon is like 16 people. Because we haven't had everybody at
Yeah.
the table, but Glenn's there, and I think each of you are rocking about 3 characters
Yep.
each.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys are like 15 characters wandering through this dungeon. But as we know, one bad hit,
Yep.
like you're still first level. One bad hit, somebody gonna die.
oh yeah, yeah.
We almost lost someone this week.
Yeah.
Luckily, the cleric jumped in and did some lay on hands.
Of course, then the really bad thing is if the cleric goes down, then
Remember that's what happened in the previous
Yeah.
version we
Yes.
played, where the cleric
Yep.
took that
Yep.
potion that gave her extra points, but then it killed her.
yep.
Actually, yeah, and she took it knowing that when it wore off, she was going to die. That was the whole
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
She was.
She wasn't even
my last character.
She wasn't even that likable of a character. But at that
liked
moment,
her.
the whole group felt for her.
Yes.
Like,
She was a bad cleric. She was a nice character.
yes, she was a bad cleric.
Mock, unfortunately, Mock is only pawn in Game of Life.
Yes, Mock is the only pawn in Game of Life.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I did Friday Night Eberron with Phil, with Bob, and then Savage Sunday, which we do once a month here in Buffalo. Things have also been crazy for me because I hired a new employee for a newly created position. And so I'm trying to kind of both figure out where this position fits in and train the new employee in the midst of people being sick and absent and everything else that goes on. And then in preparation for Scum and Villainy, I watched Disney's The Black Hole again. This is a movie, if you haven't seen it, from 1979.
Yes, right after Star Wars.
Right after Star Wars, actually
Yes.
right after Empire, just before Empire.
Yes.
And it was Disney's attempt back when they were making a lot of dark movies. Special effects are not great for the most part, but they were kind of, the black hole itself was kind of, was really cool, which they actually did by just swirling a swimming pool at the time.
Yeah, that
But
makes sense.
It's basically a haunted ship in space kind of story. Space crew goes out and finds a lost colony ship. There's only one human left alive on board, and one of the other characters' fathers was on the ship, and so she's worried about if he's there. The whole ship is staffed by robots, and the captain has gone a little bit crazy, and he's trying to figure out how to get to the center of the black hole safely. And the crew begins to realize that they may be the guinea pigs for it. And then things go very, very badly for everybody.
It just occurred to me that that's kind of a lighter version of Event Horizon.
Yes.
It is very much
Yes.
a later version of Event Horizon with about the same outcome. And the main bad guy has a giant robot named Maximilian who's got 6 arms, 2 of
Yep.
which end in giant spinning saw blades that get used, which was surprising for a Disney movie, where somebody gets shredded right through a book into their guts.
Anthony Hopkins, right?
Well, I didn't want to spoil that for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. But it's got Anthony Hopkins, it's got Ernest Borgnine, Maximilian Schnell.
Who's the other robot? So Maximilian's the big square,
Oh,
but who's the round
Well, there's
robot?
2 of them. There's Vincent,
Vincent.
and then there's old Bob.
Oh, Vincent was like my favorite when I was
Roddy
a kid.
McDowell.
I was
Roddy
old
McDowell.
Bob back in the day.
Yep,
I
yep.
had a Vincent action
Yep,
figure.
yep.
Oh, I loved Vincent. It's
Roddy
a cute-
Perkins.
Yeah, it
I got that right. Anthony Perkins from.
Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates.
Yeah.
Yep. It's got Robert Forster plays the main hero, and Yvette Mimieux is the female lead. And there's some cool little things. It definitely needs an upgrade, and it definitely suffers from bad special. There are times you can like see the strings holding the meteor that
Yeah.
comes through the building.
I would love to
But it's
have
fun.
Disney do an upgraded version of that with the modern special effects
Well,
and stuff.
they were originally planning to. The guy who did Tron Legacy was going to do it. As a matter of fact, if you watch the Tron movie, that just the most recent one, you can see a black hole poster in back because that was going to be his next film. But when Tron Legacy didn't make the money they wanted it to, that got pulled. But it's still in their wheelhouse. But
First
anyway,
of all, Tron Legacy, awesome. Second of all, Tron Legacy soundtrack, even more awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you're interested in seeing a movie with mediocre acting, good plot, so special effects, very 70s, with a very ominous feel for a Disney movie, and a really bizarre ending. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got the book and the novelization explains it, but there's a very kind of philosophical, metaphysical ending to the movie that really kind of threw people because you walked out of the movie going, I don't know what just happened.
What the hell just happened?
Yeah, I mean, you know what happened, just not why.
Got
It's
a little,
it's a
got a
fun
little
flick.
Akira on that, huh?
But was that?
Got a little
Tetsuo.
Akira on that ending, huh?
More understandable than Akira. But,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But and you know, at age 8, Maximilian was just like it was
Yeah.
like Darth Vader taken to the next degree. So,
Yes, Maximilian was terrifying as a kid.
Plus PSI powers.
PSI, yes. Yeah.
So Phil,
Air pressure powers. Yeah. Yeah, I had a shitty week last week.
yeah,
I had a week that was so bad. I got so mad on Thursday. I had like light chest pains. I'm pretty sure that's bad, right? Like
yeah.
Usually that's bad.
that's usually pretty bad. Like that's like you got to calm the fuck down, Phil. Bad, right? Like I was mad, and then Friday wasn't actually better. Friday, the only thing that saved me was I had to take my laptop to the Apple store to have the my work laptop to the Apple store for a battery replacement. So I just had to leave the office. Like
There you
I
go.
was furious by lunchtime, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to the Apple Store. And guess where I'm not going after the Apple Store?
Back to work.
Back to work. Yeah, it was really bad. And actually, Senda saved me. I was like, I've been under a lot of pressure for work stuff. I had the weekend planned to do like a whole bunch of work on Turning Point and like a bunch of other stuff. And I was on the phone with her, and she was like, "Do you really need to do any work this weekend?" And I looked at the list, and I was like, "No." She's like,
Don't.
"Why don't you just don't? Like, take the weekend off." So I did. I took the weekend off, and I watched Netflix, and I played Minecraft. I'm still playing that FTB Academy pack. I cooked. I made some delicious Chinese barbecue pork, and then made some donburi bowls and some pork fried rice. And I had the house to myself. The kids were at a Taekwondo tournament all weekend.
That's cool.
So I was alone, which was really nice. Like, normally I would invite you guys over, but that's how shitty my week was. I was like, I'm just gonna, like, I'm gonna just live in this house. And I did. I really kicked back and relaxed. I really needed to. Like, I was really spun up. I haven't been that angry in like 2 or 3 years at work, and I'm cool now. Like I'm okay. I'm okay so far. But I also know from my mood tracker that Tuesday is not the day of the week I get mad at. It's tomorrow or Thursday.
Oh.
The other thing that's got me a little spun up anxiety-wise is coronavirus.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a background in molecular biology, so I have a background in molecular biology. My graduate work was in pharmacology, and I spent several years working in AIDS research, so I have a little bit of epidemiology also as a background. And I'm pretty, like, I'm not freaking out, but I am not cool right now with the information about, like, the information and how things are progressing coronavirus-wise, right? Like, I'm not like full prepper, but I'm also like, this will probably get worse before it gets better. I'm also combating, like, a lot of people are saying dumb stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
Some of which
More than usual.
Yes, some of which is coming directly from our president. I will take my hat off to our governor, not a person I'm always thrilled with, but our governor has actually handled this whole thing actually very well. Like, when I say I'm not a big fan, like, I got totally screwed like 8 years ago on my union contract by the governor. So not a huge fan of this guy, but he is dealing with this outbreak with a lot of communication. Like, I see press conferences, I think, almost every day from him, with a clean website with updated numbers of cases, and, like, it's helping. Like, it's not, I mean, I don't know, you can only contain this thing so much, but the thing I'm worried about is, like, I work at a university, I work at a college, spring break's coming, right? And those campuses are going to empty out, and they're going to scatter those kids everywhere. And then in a week after that, they're going to come back from wherever they were.
Yep.
And they're 20, so they're not going to self-quarantine.
Nope.
They're not going to not go party in crowded bars and things like that, and or go home to wherever. So I'm cool-ish, but I'm like I know from an anxiety perspective, like, I'm reading a lot of coronavirus information because that is a sign that my anxiety is spun up, right? I'm trying to consume as much information as I can to be, like, prepared. And not to lie, like, I've bought more groceries. Like, I have more groceries in my house than I normally keep. Do I think I'm going to be working from home at some point? I'm pretty sure I am. Are my kids going to be home from school at some point? Probably, right? Like, I have no problem believing that's the thing. Now, for us in New York, we're on the western side of New York, and literally all of the reported cases are on the eastern side of New York. But every day, like, another county reports in, and it's only so long.
Yeah.
And like I said, when all the colleges around here, hit spring break, game on.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know the campus I work on, a large number of those students live in Long Island,
Yep.
New York City, and things like that. They're going to go home, and then they're going to come back. And at that point, it's anyone's game.
Yeah.
And if you look at like the Italian numbers, right?
Yeah.
Like where we are right now at our infection rate is like where Italy was like a week ago. And right now that country's locked down. I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to be a doomsdayer, but like, I'm anxious, like steadily anxious, and trying to manage it.
Yeah.
We were discussing this earlier that somebody told me they got back from being on a cruise of all things, and that they were talking to somebody who is somebody I work with was saying that they were talking to somebody whose brother was a doctor in Europe. He's like, oh, the company should have a policy on coronavirus, which I was working on already, and here's a whole bunch of things that this guy's brother who's a doctor gave me. And I looked at it and I'm like, there's no sites, there's nothing cited here, nothing at all. Luckily, I happen to be married to a nurse practitioner, so I sent her the list and said, is any of this something I should say? She said, no, absolutely not. And then sent me a copy of the CDC's recommendations that they give to all the hospitals, and that's our company policy, is what the CDC says, which is pretty much what you've been hearing from the CDC all along. But there is so much misinformation and so much third-party hearsay and all that. It's gonna get crazy, and people are still buying toilet paper and.
I mean, people are trying to manage their anxiety about this, right? Like, it's been a long, long time. I mean, there have been other outbreaks.
Yeah.
Right. But like this one's, I mean, to me, and again, where we live, like SARS was a big thing because it had a big outbreak in Toronto.
Yeah.
But it didn't really ever really push over the border.
Nope.
And H1N1 like didn't really like take root or anything. But this one, like, I don't know. This one seems more it seems more aggressive, right? Like, I mean, the West Coast has it.
I cannot help but think this one's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm worried because
no,
I have 7 employees who every day go out and they go into customers' buildings. And,
Yeah.
We've had to institute a few, like, no more handshaking.
Yep.
That kind of stuff, and just
Some fist bumps. And
not even that.
elbow.
You don't have to do any contact. Just kind of.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the jazz hands.
Jazz hands is great.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be able to get my my employees to do the bow and curtsy, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be a thing, and I expect there's going to be a chance that in the next month or two, I'm just going to have to tell my people out in the field, you stay home for a week or something until things get
Make
straightened
calls.
out.
Yeah.
What was that?
Make calls.
Make calls. Well, unfortunately, half of my guys' business is physical inspections and stuff like
Oh, yeah.
that have to be done for the state to control Legionnaire's disease, which is another thing. So, it'll be something that's coming up.
So, Avi's asking, is COVID-19 ever going away, or will it be the new normal? No, I mean these things come and go, right? Like the 1918 flu pandemic, right, was a thing, but it's like the flu is not as big of an epidemic as it was anymore because we now constantly make vaccines for it. We have much better medical facilities, things like that. I think my guess is that this will either do what SARS and MERS did, which is flare up and flare out, although this one seems way more pervasive. My guess is we'll wind up with a vaccine, and then with a vaccine and exposure comes herd immunity.
Yep.
Right? And herd immunity is really what blunts
Yep.
us. Like, for instance, measles is way more virulent.
Yeah.
Like, it infects way more people than Corona does, right? But because most of us, and I say that with a stern voice, because most of us went and got vaccines or had vaccines when we were kids, it doesn't go anywhere,
Yeah.
right? Because it's blunted by herd immunity. The problem with COVID-19 is we don't got it because we don't have any immunity yet.
Right.
So it's going to run like through a bunch of stuff, and then the world's going to get it. Like we're going to get some level of immunity, and then maybe we'll have future COVID outbreaks, but it'll be like the flu, right? Like I get a flu shot every year. I get a flu shot every year, and you know, it one keeps me from getting the flu, and two, it keeps me from getting the flu and passing it to others.
Yeah.
And for that, like the flu's more blunted. I think I'm no expert, right? But I suspect that's what we'll see going forward is that we'll have to get through this, and I'm not saying get through it like Boris Johnson from the UK, who was like, let's just get everybody sick and see who makes it.
Yeah.
I'm talking like time will pass, and hopefully we'll do the best to contain it and not get a lot of people, and then hopefully we'll get a vaccine before it comes back around, and then hopefully that'll help.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
a thing.
it's I mean, it's a thing. Like it's
I mean, we're already having situations where some of our people can't go into certain counties, like you talked about.
oh yeah, you can't I wouldn't go to Westchester.
Yeah, they just locked up. Well, that's going to be a problem because we do Sing Sing and West Point, so we're not going there apparently.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can travel into those areas, but I would also be very careful traveling into those areas.
I just may not send my people there.
Yeah.
I mean, what about people that have to cross the border? You know, that's going to be a problem.
You know, I mean, my kids have a Taekwondo tournament in May, and we were talking about it, and I was like, you know, we could say we're going, but we may have to make a decision not to go because I'm less worried about crossing into Canada. I'm terrified about trying to get back into America.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden, like, they close a border or enact our government is not stable enough right now to be out of the country during a time of crisis.
Yeah,
right.
They can easily decide to say, nope, you're not coming back in unless you quarantine for a week.
I mean, they don't want to let that cruise ship dock. Like, I don't want to. I mean, listen, there are worse places than to be stuck in Ontario. Ontario's a lovely place, but I'd still want to be able to get home.
Yep.
I mean, there's only so much Tim Hortons. No, that's not true. I could really stay at Tim Hortons for some time.
I know a guy with a boat.
No, boy. Get yourself shot coming
Making
across
runs across the friggin' lake.
Oh no! You do it on the St. Lawrence.
Yeah. Oh, St. Lawrence. That's high up. I was thinking the Niagara, but
No, Niagara's too patrolled. Take St. Lawrence.
Anyway, we've hit the anointed hour, and I don't want to bum everyone out, other than to say that, like, look, you know, this shit's real, and it's okay to be nervous about it. Like, it's okay to have anxiety about it. You know, people are always asking me, like, not that I'm any kind of expert, but I've been talking about it. So people are like, you know, like, should I be concerned? And I'm like, I don't think you should not be concerned, right? But I don't think you should be, you know,
Don't brush it off.
don't drink bleach. Like John Oliver said, if you're thinking about drinking bleach, calm the fuck down. But if you're thinking of licking a subway pole, maybe you want to take this a little more seriously. I think that's pretty much where I want to.
God bless John Oliver.
I'll be straight. Every government is handling this way better than the U.S. Let's just be clear.
Yes.
Seriously, like, I'm actually embarrassed. Like, I am, and I'm actually thankful that I'm at least in a state where my governor is taking this seriously and doing something about it. When my president is, you know. Anyway,
I'm beyond the point of being embarrassed about my government.
Just gonna leave that right there.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
All right, we should probably jump into an after show if we want to have it because it's 10:03.
Well, wait, how about some Patreon shoutouts?
Yes, we
Yeah,
should
yeah, do
absolutely
that.
do some Patreon shoutouts. The fabulous Troy Sandlin, Will Doyle, Sean Merwin, the Mad Wizard, Zach Goins, Mirko Frolik, Cindy Moore, the Old School DM, Chris Constantine, Eric Simon, Eric Mengi, Sean P. Kelly,
Chris Steele.
yes, Brett, the Rainmaker, and Brandon Barnes.
Hey.
Thank you so much to all of our patrons, and thanks to everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with other listeners in the awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
If you can't make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts. And take a listen to some of the other shows of the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Bone Stone and Obsidian, Padness Talking Games, The Gnome Cast, Zhang Hustle, She's a Super Geek, Bonus Experience, and the FM Gamers. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts like Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After you have written 12 pages of character notes and are afraid to send it to your GM, you know what? Send it to us.
Yeah.
We'd love to see your character backgrounds. Leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly at mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on Twitter. The show, the network, is at misdirectedmark. This is GM Gerrymander. That is Robert M. Everson, and I am DNA Phil.
Yes. If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhang Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhang Hustle. And Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and the other occasional special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.